Hi everyone, welcome to Yoga with Heini. I'm Heini. In this video we're going to go through the reclining twist pose in detail. So we're going to start the reclining twist from reclining onto the mat. So come lie down. We have different ways of going into the pose. One way would be that we start from lying down on the back with knees bent, and from here we just slowly bring both knees to one side. Now you have an option to do the twist with legs quite wide apart, so knees quite wide apart, or you can slide the top leg, the top knee on top of the other, so then your knees, your hips are more on top of each other. Especially if you know that you have issues in the lower back, this might be a better option, have the knees, the hips more on top of each other. We keep the chest still open up towards the ceiling. Another way of coming into the pose would be to hug the knees into the chest first, then open the arms out to the side like a T shape so you can control yourself going down with the arms. And slowly, now we need to use a bit more core. We're going to slowly lower the legs down, and we keep the knees, keep the hips already here more aligned, and arrive into the pose this way. One more different way would be to start from lying down on the side. So we are lying down on the side, both knees already on top of each other. And from here, we start to open the chest. So we leave the legs and then open the chest up towards the ceiling. And the legs might stay on top of each other, or you might find that the knees, the hips kind of slide out from the alignment where they were on top of each other. And either way works very well, as long as you don't feel pain in the hips, in the lower back. Now we don't have to have our both legs bent. We have different options, different shapes as well. So we have, like, I call this one-legged twist, where we have one leg straight and one knee bent. So we would start from here, lying down on the back, hugging one knee in, and then with the opposite hand, opposite arm, we slowly start to guide the bent leg to the opposite side and leaving the chest open here. Now we don't need to push that bent knee down onto the mat. That might be too much. So you might leave the knee off the mat. And we'll look in a bit how we could use props under that leg to fill the gap. It might be that your shoulder stays, that opposite shoulder stays on the mat, but you might find the shoulder coming off the mat as well. As long as there's no pain in the shoulder in the back, it might be fine to have the arm, have the shoulder slightly come off the mat. Again, this one-legged option, we could also start from the side. So we would come lie down on the side, bring that bent leg knee down in front of us, and then start to open the chest. And again, it might be that the shoulder doesn't go all the way down on the mat. Or as you come into the pose, you might find the knee coming off the mat. So again, don't feel like you have to force them down. One more option for the legs would be the eagle legs or the twisted roots legs. And to add that twisting in the legs, leave one foot on the mat and then lift the other leg up into the air so that you can cross that lifted leg around the other thigh. It's a bit like sitting at the desk, crossing your legs when you're sitting at the desk, and then lowering legs towards one side of the mat. So if I have my left leg under. I'm gonna bring my both legs to the left side of the mat. And that might change the sensations running through the legs, especially there on the outside of the thigh, hip. It might change how you feel in the back. It might even change how you feel in the shoulder and the arm. And it might be that your shoulder comes off the mat more than it did when you had your legs just resting on top of each other. So it might change the whole pose for the whole body. If you practice the eagle legs, the twisted roots legs, be mindful how it feels in your back. It might take your spine too deep into the pose. So if you start to feel it's creating pain in the back, in the hips, in the knees, then don't do it. Don't force it. You can always practice without those twisted legs. So those are some different options for the legs. Now let's think about some options in the arms as well. So I'll come lying down this way so you can see my arms better. So we have an option where we open both arms out to the sides like a T shape, or it could be like a cactus shape. Sometimes that's a bit too stressful for the shoulders, arms, or the back. And in that case, I would suggest bringing the arms lower down, maybe lengthening the arms next to the sides, or you could step your hand on your side, on that open side, or onto your belly. So you're allowing the shoulder to more rotate in, and that might feel better in the shoulder. The other hand could be resting on top of the knees, on top of the thighs, so you can use that free hand, free arm to gently ground the legs down, not forcefully pushing down, but just giving a bit of support, and that might help the hips to relax. Your neck, your head might come into a twist as well, but there's no right or wrong way to turn your head in the pose. You might explore turning head away from the knees. You might want to keep looking up towards the ceiling, or you could turn your head in the same direction with your knees. So different kind of twist for your neck. Make sure you could keep your neck relaxed. And remember, there's no right or wrong way to turn your head. The function of the pose is to give a twist for your spine. But as you come into the pose, you might notice that it also gives some opening for the top leg thigh. You might feel it on the outside of the hip. And as we open the chest, you might feel there's an opening in the chest, opening in the shoulder and arm as well. So it's not only twist for your spine, it's also for the legs, it's also for the shoulders. I prefer exhaling going into the twist. I feel that it gives me a bit more control in the core, so I'm not just collapsing into the pose, but I'm controlling that transition with the core. But then it also helps to release into the pose. So exhaling, kind of landing, releasing into the twist. But it's not the only way to breathe coming into the pose. You can also explore inhaling as you arrive into the pose, and then exhale, just release down. And when you are in the pose, just make sure it's easy to breathe. So make sure you're not taking yourself so far into so big twist that you stop breathing. Sometimes when we go a bit too far and the pose becomes painful, we are protecting our back, especially by holding the breath. So make sure you come to an edge where it is easy to breathe. You're not straining your body too much. Coming out from the pose, again, I prefer using the exhalation, just so it gives a bit of engagement in the core to keep the back safe, coming back out from that twist. but it could be inhalation as well. There's no right or wrong way to breathe coming out from the pose either. In the twist, blocks and bolsters can be really quite handy tools, and I'll show you different ways you can use them in the pose. Let's start with the blocks. Now, when we are in the twist, we are in that reclining twist. If you feel that your legs are uncomfortably hanging in the air, if you feel that it's difficult to relax the legs, you could prop the legs from underneath. So you could bring some blocks under the legs. So you're lifting the floor to your knees. You can also use blocks between the legs. Sometimes we start to feel a bit pinchy, a bit achy in the hips. So then creating some more space between the legs in that twist can create a bit more release and ease in the hips, but also in the lower back. And we can do the same with a bolster. So if you have a bolster, you can use that under the legs as well. So it's a bit bigger support than a block would be under the legs. Same, you can bring it between the knees, between the legs. Again, it's just creating more space between the legs. If you are doing more of a yin practice where you have more time to move the props around, one way a bolster can be really quite nice is on top of the legs, kind of ground and giving more weight to the legs when you are in the pose. If you're doing any kind of more flowy practice, you just might not have enough time to bring a bolster on top of the legs before already going to the other side, but more of a yin way of using a bolster on top of the legs. If we are doing that one-legged version, having a block or a bolster under the bent leg can be a really quite nice support. If you feel that the leg is again hanging in the air, then bring the floor to your leg. It could be a bolster or it could be a block as well. If you feel the leg goes maybe a bit lower down, you can use a block as well there under the leg. And in the same way, we can use bolsters and blocks under the arms, under the shoulders. I'll turn other way around again so you can see better. So now, when we open, or if we open the arm or shoulder, we can prop the arm, we can prop the shoulder so that they're not uncomfortably or painfully hanging in the air. And again, it could be a block, so then it's a bit lower down. You can even push it right under the shoulder. Maybe we're not even opening the arm, we just want to prop the shoulder. Again, if you're doing more of a yin practice and you have more time to move the props around, if you have any kind of tenderness in the back, I really quite like pushing a bolster into the back. So I'm leaning the back and almost the shoulder as well onto the bolster. So it gives a bit more support for the spine. Because the twist is such a big movement for the spine, we need to be cautious with any back injuries, any disc injuries in the spine, SI joint, so the sacroiliac joint injuries. There might be some instability around there. And again, it's an area that might get some rotation in that twist. So any back kind of spine injuries, SI joint injuries, we need to be really quite cautious with the twist and monitor and kind of control how deep into the twist we go. And we can use the props to support the back, to support the pelvic area. But some kind of basic things to think about if the twist is quite painful or uncomfortable for the back would be that when we are in the twist, if you know that there's some SI joint issues, try to keep your hips more aligned on top of each other. So the legs are kind of more on top of each other, the knees, the hips are more aligned, so that we are taking that kind of sharing away from the lower back SI joint area. And maybe we even prop the back. Maybe we bring some support behind the back and use this pose as more of a chest opener. So not even putting so much twist into the whole spine, but more just opening the chest. Maybe we put some support under the shoulder. So we're leaning maybe the shoulder onto a block, onto a bolster, and not putting too much pressure lower down in the spine. So again, if you know you have lower back issues, start from lying down on the side and just open the chest. So it's more of a chest opener. And this kind of variation could be used in pregnancy as well, because we don't want to then twist in the belly area. We could just do a gentle opening in the chest and not twist down into the belly area. One other thing to consider is how we come out from the pose, especially if the back feels quite achy. Lifting the legs up might be too big of a movement, too aggressive movement for the back if we know that there are some aches and pains in the back. So then coming out from the pose, I would suggest closing the chest, so curling towards the legs. And that's often a bit more gentle way of coming out from the pose. Another thing to consider in that twist is if we have shoulder injuries. So then opening the arms and hanging arms in the air might be too much for the shoulders. So be mindful of if you feel pinching in the shoulders, in the arms, or if your hands go numb, if your hands go numb when you are in the pose, then that is a cue for us to change where the arms are. Often bringing arms lower down releases that pressure in the shoulders. But again, you can prop the shoulders, you can prop the arms so they're not hanging in the air, but you can rest them on something. So lift the floor to your arms if the floor is too far down. And remember, this is not the only way to practice twisting. There are always different options. So if you feel that doing the reclining twist is painful and there's no option that suits your body, then don't push it. We can always find a different way to create a twist for your spine. And as always, if you have injuries, if you have medical conditions that you are concerned about, talk about practicing the pose with your medical professional before attempting the pose. If you have any questions, any thoughts about the pose, just let me know. Leave a comment below and we can chat further. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful. If you did, click subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of any new videos. I'll be posting lots more yoga related videos on this channel. I also teach online yoga classes, and if you're interested in those, you'll find more information in the description box below and on my website. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.